There's one other key idea from the introduction of coordinate geometry that we're going to use in geometry class. This didn't get a lot of use to you in Algebra 1, and I don't know how hard you hit it in Algebra 2, but you learned about it in middle school, I trust. I want to make sure to remind you of it or to teach you about it the first time if you either forgot or didn't learn it the first time around. And that's the idea of quadrants. So let's take a look at this coordinate plane that I've got kind of sketched out right here. So I've got the x-axis and the y-axis, and you notice how that breaks the plane into 4 different sections. We got this section, this section, this section, and this section. And we're going to give those special names. We're going to call them quadrants. Do you notice something about the prefix in that that's reminding you of other things? The prefix quad means 4. So this is splitting the plane into 4 different sections, just like a quadrilateral was a polygon that had 4 sides. So we're going to split this. We're going to come up with names for these quadrants, and we're going to call them Quadrant 1, Quadrant 2, Quadrant 3, and Quadrant 4. But since there are already a lot of numbers floating around when we have graphs, we're going to do something a little bit special when we talk about quadrants. We're going to use Roman numerals when we talk about quadrants. So the first quadrant, Quadrant 1, is the one in the upper right-hand corner. And you notice that this is the one where any point in here is going to have a positive x coordinate because you're moving to the right from the origin, and then you're moving up. So our y coordinate is also going to be positive. So positive x and positive y. So I'll write that as x is greater than 0 and y is greater than 0. And then to number the other quadrants, we're going to move around in a counterclockwise motion. Remember, counterclockwise, a clock hands go like this swinging around, and so counterclockwise means we go the other way. So over here is going to be Quadrant 2. Okay, and in Quadrant 2, how do our x and y values change here? In Quadrant 1, we had positive x values and positive y values. How do the x and y values in Quadrant 2 differ? Well, this time when you start from the origin, you're moving to the left to start out. So we're working towards the negative numbers on this original number line. So here we have x being less than 0. Are the y values greater than or less than 0 in Quadrant 2? Well, we're moving up to get to points in Quadrant 2. So that's the positive side of the y-axis. So the x values are negative, but the y values are positive. Next, moving around in that counterclockwise fashion, we have Quadrant 3. And Quadrant 3 is down here in the lower left corner. So how do the x and y values change here? This time you're using negative numbers along the original number line, and you're also using negative numbers on the y-axis to get down to the third quadrant. So in the third quadrant, x is less than 0 and y is less than 0. And the final quadrant we have is Quadrant 4. Now, Quadrant 4, 4 in Roman numerals is a little bit different. It's not 4 i's. It's going to be an I and a V. This stands for 5 minus 1. So what are the x and y values look like in Quadrant 4? You're starting from the origin, and we're moving to the right. So our x values are going to be positive here. And then we've got a negative y value because we've got to move down along the y-axis. So here we have x being greater than 0 and y is less than 0. Okay, so you can see we have every combination of positive and negative xy values leading to a different quadrant. All right, so that's the idea behind the 4 quadrants, how they're numbered going around in a counterclockwise fashion, and they're numbered with Roman numerals. And also for each quadrant, whether we're talking about positive or negative X and Y values. So you're going to do an IXL that's going to measure all of these basic skills about reading and interpreting a coordinate plane. And then once you've gotten solid with that, we're going to move forward and remember some other things that we learned from Algebra 1 about the coordinate plane.